I'm the CEO of London Arts and Health, and I'm also helping to run Creativity and Wellbeing Week. So I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. If you have any problems hearing me, I think I've got a slight lag on my Wi-Fi. Just let me know, come off mute and let me know, and I'll try my best to fix it. I also just want to send apologies from Victoria. So Victoria is the director of the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, but she is having some technical issues today, so she's unable to join us. So I'm going to just whiz through all the slides and do my best. But if you want any more detail, just let me know afterwards. So yeah, we're going to talk a bit about the arts and culture and loneliness today, and hopefully share some useful, interesting kind of studies and case studies and stuff with you. I thought I'd just very, very quickly tell you about tell you about London Arts and Health. So we're a free membership organisation. We're a sector support organisation funded by the Arts Council, and we really support creative practitioners and health professionals across the whole of London and beyond. And we also run Creativity and Wellbeing Week. We have a really useful newsletter. We do lots of sector trainings for our members, and we do a lot of kind of convening of the sector and policy work. We've got a QR code there, but it's all on our website if you would like to join our free membership and engage with us. And just very, very briefly about the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance. So we talk about our organisations as being sister organisations. Again, they're a free to join membership funded by the Arts Council, and they are really covering the whole of England, so the rest of the country, in terms of networking, collaboration, policy, advocacy, resources, and they're based up in Barnsley in South Yorkshire. So both organisations, we collaborate a lot together, and they also help us with Creativity and Wellbeing Week. But again, you can join the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance for free. And a bit about Creativity and Wellbeing Week. So Creativity and Wellbeing Week is England's free national festival of creative health. It takes place every year in May, and there's usually around 300 events happening nationally. So it's a real kind of grassroots movement. Lots of different organizations, practitioners, health colleagues, culture colleagues add their events to the website. It really is, a fantastic festival to engage with. And I love this quote from Clive Parkinson, because it's not only about the big organizations that are doing things, but it's often about the smaller grassroots organizations and practitioners. So Clive, who is a brilliant kind of practitioner and thinker of creative health, asks how many people are invisible to us, what skills and experiences are hidden away in flats and houses, prisons and on the streets, which again I think feeds really nicely into our theme today. But not only that, it's a real catalyst for creative health. So we love the festival because we often get to engage in topics or questions that we don't have very much time to think about. So that might include things like AI and creative health. We had a really great session on that last year. Representation. So how do we ensure that we're building a fair and equitable sector? Hospital arts, creativity in a health crisis. And, we've had lots and lots of surveying and kind of imagining and thinking and reflecting on the festival. And it really, what people kind of come back to is it's that sort of strategic catalyst. It's that moment where everyone can join together and really show the strength and the depth of the sector. But I thought I'd just touch on the theme today. So loneliness, creativity and culture, and what does that mean to our sector? What evidence are we drawing from? And we know that creativity in general is really, really great for anyone feeling kind of lonely, depressed, down, isolated. We know that taking part in a creative activity can make us feel well. But there's a couple of groups of people who are particularly vulnerable to loneliness. So older people and younger people, and there's lots of evidence around to kind of support that. And we also know that loneliness is quite aligned with structural inequities, and it kind of often increases in groups who might be facing discrimination through class, heritage, race, gender, etc. And we also know that loneliness, or lonely people is, they are going to suffer more health issues, whether that's heart disease, they might be more at risk from depression or dementia. And actually, loneliness is also likely to increase your risk of death by a third, so by 29%. what is good though about creativity and culture is that that can actually, oh sorry, hopefully you can still see the slides, that can actually address some of the causes of loneliness. So that might include the social determinants of health, but also some of the symptoms. And there's a really good example here from the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance of the Knife Angel. And they actually won an award this year in the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance's Creative Health Awards. And the Knife Angel is a Gloucester-based project addressing serious challenges to youth health and wellbeing, using lots of different art forms to connect young people together who might be experiencing some of those things across Gloucester. So it's a really brilliant case study. It's on their website if you want to check that out. There's also a couple of really significant research summaries that we can draw on. So in 2019, commissioned by the World Health Organization, Daisy Fancourt and Sasha Finn undertook a scoping of around 9,000 peer-reviewed papers. So it's really, really robust evidence. And that showed or concluded really that the arts provide a really recognized way of reducing loneliness and social isolation, and actually particularly amongst people living in rural or disadvantaged areas, which is really important to remember. And you can see on the right-hand side a logic model from that review, which breaks down some of those really core ingredients of arts intervention. So what is it actually that's happening in the arts that's addressing loneliness and isolation? So things like sensory activation, using your imagination, social activity, but also the kind of social currency that engaging in the arts, even if that's doing something on your own at home, it gives you that sense of social currency that you can chat about with other people and making those kind of connections. And all these things offer an opportunity to tackle problems in prevention and the management of ill health. And the following year, there was a 2020 study by DCMS, and that was particularly commissioned for policymakers to guide policy. And again, that reported there's really strong evidence that the arts can enhance social cohesion, including reducing individual loneliness and isolation. And in our own sector, we've got some really, really brilliant reports that synthesize a huge evidence base. So the 2017 All-Party Parliamentary Group for Arts, Health and Wellbeing report, and the 2023 kind of update to that review. And again, that talks about how creative activities really build social capital and connection, and offer those kind of community and place-based approaches to not only reducing health inequalities, but as I said, building social capital, providing meaning and purpose, and empowering people to kind of be in charge of their own health and well-being. And I just want to touch on the influence of lockdowns for a second, because I think this is really interesting. I mean, COVID was devastating for everybody. We know it particularly affected older people and younger people. But weirdly, I think in our sector, it actually provided a moment of innovation, because we all reached for cultural activities whilst we were shielding and isolating at home. Everybody listened to podcasts, read books, made up Zoom quizzes with their family online, or, you know, watched Netflix, or kind of engaged in some kind of cultural activity to keep them sane, really. And what TRA managed to do was collect 50 case studies with a reach of around 100,000 individuals who'd taken part in really innovative kind of creative health activities. And the Arthur and Martha and Arts Derbyshire example shown here, I'm not going to read out all the text. Again, this is all on TRA's website, was a really interesting example of passing along creative activity, engaging people kind of thinking out of the box, working across multiple settings, whether that's care homes, their own houses, flats, places as well, you know, because we couldn't go into cultural venues, we couldn't go out. So we had to really think outside the box. So in some ways, those kind of moments of collective devastation are also a moment of creativity and kind of connection, and really showing the ability of the arts to connect and fight against loneliness and isolation. So how does creative health tackle loneliness? Well, what is creative health? I keep saying this expression, this term, like what does it actually mean? And we know that from the National Centre of Creative Health that it really refers to creative activities and approaches that have a tangible benefit for health and well-being. And as kind of illustrated, they can really include a whole range of different types of creative activity, cultural activity that's relevant for you and the communities that you belong to. And they can be very innovative. I think that's really, really interesting. Thinking outside the box, thinking of different ways to approach health and care services, really utilizing ideas of co-production. So starting from an asset based approach rather than thinking of a deficit or thinking of someone being unwell, thinking about their lived experience, their innate knowledge of themselves and their condition and what they might bring to creativity and culture in that sense. And that creative health can be applied really anywhere. It doesn't have to take place in a cultural organization. And I really love this David Shrigley illustration with this poor man having his head glued back on. But this idea that the arts are like a glue, they're cohesive, they're going to stick you back together, but they're also going to stick you back together with your community and your people. So a couple of case studies from where I'm from in London. I work across London, Pan London, with lots and lots of different places, organizations and people. And I really love this example. It's called Frames of Mind. And this took place in Newham. And it was from an organization called People Need People. And it took place in a library, in Stratford Library. And so this community group, were referred by link workers, social prescribers, the council, and it's really about a support space for residents who actually might be struggling with digital inclusion. But that was done through really, really creative methods, working with artists, working with different materials, not your kind of bog standard, this is how a computer works, this is how social media works, etc. And there were, absolutely immeasurable kind of outcomes. The group took on a life of its own, demanded more kind of outings, had its own WhatsApp group. And also the Frames of Mind staff, who knew their participants really well, were able to really successfully signpost on and keep people informed and connected with other Newham organisations. So once they knew their participants, they could see when something was coming up, whether that might be a housing, a debt issue, another health condition or another issue, and they were able to kind of make those referrals on, which is fantastic. Another project that people might be familiar with is called Meet Me at the Albany, and that takes place at the Albany, which is an arts centre in Lewisham, but also is run by an organisation called Entelechy Arts, and it grew out of a really simple question shared by the Albany, Entelechy and Lewisham Council, who are often dealing with a lot of these issues, around what if isolated and lonely older people had the opportunity to go to an art centre instead of a day centre. And so Meet Me is a social club, it's an arts club. There's a myriad of different activities, from circus, jazz, sculpture, singing, a weekly choir, there's outings, there's cinema screenings. And it really, has fed into that idea of collective imagination. Like when we work together and we're really listening to what our older residents wish and want, we can co-produce something really successful together. I'm just going to finish up. I know the time is ticking by, but I thought I'd just touch on this idea of building an NHS for the future and the Darzi report that was commissioned last autumn by the Labour government. And some of those kind of recommendations included ideas of the shift to prevention, the shift to communities. How do we kind of empower patients, people and staff? How do we make these systems a bit more integrated? And the National Centre, again, published a really great response that really shows that creative health can answer a lot of those issues. But we know the NHS is really up against it. The abolishment of NHS England, the cuts that are coming to our integrated care boards, who are these systems who are trying to run the NHS locally and make sure that we all have the services that we need. But we know that creative health can really improve quality of life, empower people around their health, and reduce some of those pressures, helping people to stay in employment. It's also very effective and cost effective. Often as creative health practitioners, we can do a lot with very little. So we can help people manage and kind of recover from poor mental health. We can support people in social care to live independently and have a good quality creative life connected to other people. And one final really good example of this, so this is something we've been working on at London Arts and Health for about 6 months, and that's a strategy, a creative health strategy for a new integrated systems building. So this is in Northeast London and Havering. It's called St George's Health and Wellbeing Hub, and it's a kind of future orientated model of care. So there are social prescribers, there's a GP, there's diagnostics, there's renal dialysis, there's mental health, there's an aging well centre, as well as community space and gardens for kind of activity. And the hub really wants to try and utilize creative health to address loneliness and isolation through a planned program of activities, bringing in local partners like Creative Health Havering and Havering Music School. And we know that Havering in London has one of the oldest populations. So almost half of one-person households are over 65. So it's got a real aging population. So again, we're hopeful that these types of systems building, working with local artists, working with creative health strategy, might start to offer a whole person approach to care and combat isolation and loneliness. That's a huge amount of information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thanks, Abba. Back to you.
Thanks, Anna. That was great. Now I will hand over to Gemma Channing, who is the Senior Manager for Creative Health and Change at Arts Council England. And if you have any questions for Anna, please put them in the chat and we will answer them at the end. Over to you, Gemma.
Lovely, thank you. I'm just going to start sharing my screen so you can witness in real time how slow my laptop is. Just going to get it into presenter mode. There we go. That should be full screen now. So yeah, I can see Abba nodding. So this is great. We're on a roll. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much to everyone at the Tackling Loneliness Hub for inviting me to speak. I'm really excited to be here today. And I've just been sort of reading through the chat and see all the different kind of roles and where it seems like such a good cross-section in terms of like people's areas of practice and where they are in the country. And I think that really speaks to what for me is such an important part of creative health in terms of tackling loneliness, which is that collaborative approach and that it takes us all working together. So I'm going to just give you a small talk really on Arts Council England, who we are, in case you don't know, and the kind of work that we do in creative health and loneliness specifically. There we go. So if you don't know who we are, so we're the development agency for creativity and culture in England. And what that means really is that we invest money into arts activity. So through National Lottery project grants and distributing DCMS and Department for Education funding as well. So you might know of us in terms of funding stuff, but we also work strategically with lots of partners to look at policy and look at strategy to enable people to access creativity and culture as well, wherever they are in the country. People's geography shouldn't be a barrier, and making sure that that access is as equitable as we can make it.
So sorry to interrupt you, Gemma. I think there's some issues with the screen for everyone viewing.
Ooh.
Are you able to put it in presenter mode? I think it might be visible then.
Very oh, that's odd because it's in presenter mode for me, so I'm not sure what's bear with me.
Sure. Not to worry, everyone, as well. We're going to share all the slides afterwards as well. So if you can't see it for now, don't worry, we'll share it afterwards.
Is it stuck on the first slide? Is that what it's doing? How irritating. Swap presenter
or Gemma,
view.
it might be that you're stuck on one screen and not sharing the other screen.
Can you see that now? I do apologize. What I can do is stop sharing and talk, and then Saritha, if you're able to share the slides, I will jump back in once they're up, if that's okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Love a technical difficulty. They follow me around, so it's definitely my fault. So what was I talking about? So our strategy is Let's Create. So it's a 10-year strategy that started in 2020, slap bang in the middle of COVID. Excellent timing. And really that's our 10-year vision for England as a country where creativity is valued and that everyone has the opportunity to participate in creative and cultural activities. and that it's not just engaging in creativity sort of passively, but also that people are able to participate. People are able to participate in the way that feels right for them. Thank you, Saritha. Appreciate it. Next slide, please. So let's create. As I mentioned, it's our strategy. You're very welcome to read it. It's on our website if you need some bedtime reading. The reason that I bring it up is that it mentions health 15 times. So the impact that creativity has on health is something that is woven through our work. It's not an area of special interest. It's something that is a natural outcome of the work that we fund, and it's something that we value. Obviously, I do because I work in creative health, but we know that, for example, 1 in 5 of our project grants has a health and wellbeing element to it and has a health and wellbeing outcome to it that is specifically defined at application stage. That's a huge amount of work that's happening around the country to support health and wellbeing. Next slide, please. So we have a creative health plan. So this really lays out how we are going to work with different partners and to embed creative health around the country. So we have done that via the 3 Ps. So partnerships, so working strategically with within the creative health sector, which means the health and social care sectors, local authorities, public health departments and population health departments, so we can really make that change at a systems level. Practitioners as well, who are the bedrock of delivering this work. So looking at what skills they need, how can we support that skills development in recognition of the fact that this work has an emotional load to it. You know, it's not just creative skills, it's also the skills of working with people that might have quite complex needs. And so thinking of the well-being of creative practitioners as well. When we talk about creative health, that includes the people that are delivering it as well as the people that are experiencing it. And place as well. So embedding it in our place-based approach. So really, but a place-based approach is such a jargonistic term and I hate it, but really all that means is that like we recognize that health outcomes and creative health gives us a picture of the wider kind of ecosystem of a place, and it can influence other areas of a place. So the role that cultural organizations have in a place. Next slide, please. So what do we mean by creative health? So Anna's given a great description, so I won't go into like a full definition, but in terms of what it means for us at Arts Council, we've kind of split it into these 3 areas. So treatment and recovery. So that's where people are having creative interventions for specific conditions. So it might be music for dementia, for example. It's something that is like on a patient pathway. It's something that people can be referred into as a service. Acute care. So on here it says, while fewer in number. This was a few years ago that we wrote this strategy. Now I would argue that there is a huge number of creative health activities that are happening in acute care. And that refers to stuff that happens really in like clinical settings in hospitals when people are acutely unwell. And prevention, which loneliness, this is where loneliness kind of falls in, although it's part of all of it. I think loneliness for me very much sits in the prevention area, which is how can we as a cultural sector promote good habits and providing those connecting activities for people to enable them to participate in things that are happening in their community, and the role of creative and cultural organizations as community connecting hubs. Next slide, please. So one of the, the biggest creative health fund that we have, that we administer, is a Know Your Neighbourhood Fund. And that's specifically to tackle chronic loneliness through increasing volunteer opportunities and engagement in arts, heritage and creative activities. So that has been delivered through 3 partners, which are the Association of Independent Museums, Creative Lives and Libraries Connected. I've just put libraries on the slide. Very sorry. Libraries Connected are an amazing national organisation that work with libraries to deliver creative activities. And it was specifically targeted at 27 areas where rates of chronic loneliness were high, and also levels of sort of opportunity to engage in cultural and creative activities might have been lower, because we know that there is still an uneven distribution of activities available. So it's really to kind of build up that ecosystem of delivery in an area, and also be able to engage people that are most at risk of loneliness in those activities. So one thing that I'm quite excited about, because I'm a data nerd, is that we've been evaluating the impact of that over the last 2 years, of what the impact has been of engaging in creative activities and those volunteering opportunities, specifically on people's experiences of loneliness. So it's not ready for publication yet. It will be at some point. I'll make sure to share it with the hub when it is. We don't know what the outcome of that will be yet, but anecdotally, we know from case studies that it's having a positive impact. It's providing that connection that people need. And there's something, I think, very specific about creative and cultural activities that is different maybe from other activities in reducing loneliness, because it's something that those people can then take away outside of the group and continue whatever that activity is, whether it's music or visual arts or singing or something. It's then something, it's a skill that they've got that they can carry away from them when that group isn't running. They don't necessarily just have to wait for like Thursday at 1 o'clock to go and do the activity. And the way that creativity enables us to think differently, and just the way that we perceive the world when we're in that creative flow. I think there is a particular value in creative activities that maybe other activities don't have. But I would say that because I'm very biased. And I've put a link up there. So if you want to know more about the area, those 27 areas, or if you want to know more about the projects, you can have a look there. I've got a couple of case studies from Know Your Neighbourhood that are interesting. So Electric Voices Blackpool, I love them. So they're a new LGBTQ choir based in Blackpool, and they're because the LGBT community is a community that is likely to experience loneliness, particularly older adults. So this was specifically targeted at reaching people that were isolated through workshops, consultations, and different kind of creative musical projects. And it's really to build those friendships and to build their self-esteem while singing and while performing. So throughout this project, they've now co-produced music sets. They've performed at Blackpool Pride. They've performed at the Hand in Hand Queer Choir Festival, and the organisation as well has developed, because while the work they've delivered has had such an amazing impact, they've now taken that funding and that experience of what they've been able to do in tackling loneliness, and they've incorporated into an organisation, and this is now the work that they do. So it's not just the impact that it's had on the participants, it's also had an amazing impact on the organisation, and will have like a long legacy. So I love Electric Voices Blackpool. Next slide, please. So this is a quote from one of the participants that I know we can get like stuck in strategy and policy and emails and stuff. And for me, I find it really affirming to do the work that we do when I get feedback like this from people that are experiencing it. So the friendships I've formed in the group have helped me through some bad places mentally. The songs, the learning, and the group mean a lot to me, and the future is looking rosy. Next slide, please. And this is another project that was funded through the Know Your Neighbourhood Fund, through Association of Independent Museums. So this took place in the grounds of the Pal Cotton Museum in Thanet, down in Kent. And this specifically aimed at creating a nurturing environment for people with mental health conditions or learning disabilities, through hiring a dedicated community engagement member of staff at the museum. So this museum is very local to me, actually, and they are blessed with the most beautiful grounds, walled Victorian gardens, and what you can see here, kind of greenhouses. And they've used that space to run artist-led workshops, so to give people opportunities to engage in lots of different creative activities, a lot of kind of pottery, painting, visual arts kind of stuff. And what's really lovely about this program is that the participants have been involved in choosing what they want to do as well, so they have a say over what activities they want to do, and developing that kind of ownership of their own autonomy in what they want to do, but also like how they want that group to run. And they've also been, they linked up with Thrive, who are Gardening for Health charity. So there's a lot of horticultural activities as well involved in that. And what they create and what they develop gets shown in the gardens of the museum. So it's a really lovely project, and it's bringing together nature and creative practice as well. So double the fun. So yes, I've probably prattled on long enough. We've got various resources available on our Arts Council Creative Health page. So I've popped a link there. I'm happy for these slides to be circulated after the event. On there, you can read our Creative Health Plan. It's very short, it's only 10 pages. We've got lots of case studies of work that's happening all around the country, all different kind of scales and art forms. There's funding information as well. So we've written a guidance sheet for Creative Health National Lottery Project Grant application specifically, which kind of lays out what we expect to see in an application. So if you're looking for funding, I'd recommend that. There's a link to lots of resources on there, and we've got blog posts, and yeah, there's a lot of information on there. So I think that is it from me, but yeah, I will stick around for the Q&A. Thank you for listening to me and putting up with my tech woes. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Great. So now I'm going to pass over to Natasha. Natasha is founder of Civil Society Consulting. So over to you, Natasha.
Thanks, Abba, and yeah, lovely to see you all. I'm slideless, so you're gonna have to look at my face and look at each other's lovely faces as well. That's been so amazing to hear, Anna and Gemma, and I think listening to you, I just think, wow, there's just so much to cover, isn't there, with this topic, and I'm feeling regrets that I'm not covering other aspects, but yeah, I'm definitely coming at this from a very similar values and beliefs place. I loved Clive's quote, Anna, that you shared at the beginning there, and Gemma, I completely agree with what you were saying. You know, when you shared your quote from somebody who's actually benefiting from all of this work that we're talking about. So I'm founder director of Civil Society Consulting, which is a non-profit consultancy. I'm getting a bit self-conscious of the word consultancy because it makes us sound big and corporate, and that's kind of the opposite of what we're about. But essentially, we want health, equality, and cohesion, and we believe that civil society, the voluntary and community sector is the key, and we exist to sort of support the sector, either by being a source of very cheap support to larger organisations or a source of free support to really grassroots initiatives. And we love both strands of work, but I think that the team, you know, are really passionate about grassroots, and I can hear that kind of coming through in what you were saying, Anna and Gemma. So through our work supporting a really wide range of organisations in a really wide range of places, we've basically come to the conclusion that solving loneliness is an absolute priority, not just because of all of the health implications loneliness has, but because only through tackling loneliness can we bring about systems change. So I'm going to tell you a bit about that today. And just to add as well, I suppose my background is in evolutionary anthropology. So I'm actually dialing in from Cambridge, where I'm doing a PhD. And I suppose my whole kind of approach to health is really informed by the insights that we get from our history as a species and behavior from other species. So that's very much kind of the angle that I'm often coming from. So Abba's asked me to talk about the role of grassroots and community-led arts initiatives, how creative projects can empower and connect marginalized communities, and some lessons learned. So with the first question, what's the role of grassroots and community-led arts initiatives? I feel like it's already been coming through in Anna and Gemma's presentations, but I thought it was worth saying at the beginning that I think community is very much the solution to loneliness. And that might sound like I'm stating the obvious, but I suppose there are many factors that are contributing to higher levels of loneliness, mobile phones, cost of living. I think community is the big thing that's missing in people's lives. And often we talk about creating social connection as a sort of solution to loneliness, but really we can get on the front foot by creating community. And I think there's a few unique qualities about communities that's different from sort of social connection in general or friendship, which make it very special. I think, first of all, that we evolved in communities. So there's something deep in our DNA that just loves that feeling when we're connecting in community. The community is value for effort for the individual. So if you're experiencing loneliness, and you tap into a community, you get access to a whole range of people and a community that continues to exist, whether you're tapping in at all times or not. So it's a real value for effort situation. And community can also create such a sense of purpose, which again really helps with the sustainability of loneliness initiatives, because if you've got purpose and reason to be somewhere, then, you know, over time you continue to go, and it's self-sustaining. And also communities solve problems, and that came through in some of the case studies that you mentioned already. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that comes from community, that sort of goes beyond tackling loneliness to actually like creating solutions and getting on the front foot in terms of prevention. So if community is the solution to loneliness, and creativity is an incredible tool for creating community, I think grassroots organisations are, you know, and community-led arts initiatives are absolutely central in today's discussion. And with that in mind, I'm going to tell you about 32 Steps to Togetherness, which is a grassroots movement that we've recently launched, all about building connections within and between communities, and creativity is a constant theme in our work. So hopefully by telling you about this, it sort of demonstrates where I believe the role of grassroots and community-led arts initiatives are in tackling loneliness, and also maybe gives you a useful framework to sort of think about it in future for yourselves. So as an organisation, we became really passionate about loneliness when we realised the link between loneliness and social polarisation. So, of course, loneliness is an underlying cause of so many mental health issues that we see in the UK. And I'm probably preaching to the converted if I talk a lot about, you know, the link between loneliness and health. But some of the symptoms of loneliness can sort of surprise you and affect behaviour. So, often I talk about how loneliness can lead us to feel feelings of distrust, paranoia, feelings of irritability and anger, and low self-esteem and sort of negative mindsets. So of course that affects how how you're feeling as an individual. But when you're experiencing some cocktail of those emotions, it also affects how you behave. And we can become more susceptible to feelings of hate and intolerance. And that can kind of vary in degree. I guess at best that might lead you to be a bit sort of cliquey in how you move around certain spaces. But in some situations that can mean that you're susceptible to really divisive narratives, and sort of at worst, that might be full-blown far-right extremism. And in that way, widespread loneliness kind of creates the conditions for a divided society. And we're really passionate about this strong causal link between loneliness and social fragmentation. But we also sort of over time realized it's not just this strong causal link, it's part of a vicious cycle. So the loss of community is really inextricably linked to the system that we live in. And I'm always self-conscious of sounding a bit too radical, but essentially our very hyper-capitalistic lifestyles and economic system, which we have in the UK and the US in particular, and that they're countries where loneliness is particularly rife, that economic system sort of fundamentally positions us as competitors with one another. So we naturally sort of don't trust each other as much. Of course, if we're all competing, we're all working so goddamn hard, and we don't have much energy left over to overcome any feelings of distrust and connect with each other and connect with our communities. But also, I think crucially, that a hyper-capitalistic system is always going to be pushing out narratives around individualism, because we can sell people more things if everybody needs their own and we can't share. And I always use the example of lawnmowers in this case, so really picking on the lawnmower companies. But essentially, you know, theoretically, we could all share a lawnmower with the people on our street or the people in our housing block. Although then I suppose you wouldn't need a lawnmower, but you know, you get the idea. But then sadly for the lawnmower company, they'd only sell one lawnmower instead of selling 36 lawnmowers. So there's always going to be, you know, not in a sort of in almost in quite an organic way, really. A hyper-capitalistic society is always going to be pushing out individualistic narratives. And that's, you know, whatever you think about that, I suppose my argument would be that's just not in tune with or in keeping with how our brains work and how we spent so much of our history as a species. So sort of not how God or nature ever sort of intended it is for, you know, for us to be isolated as individuals. And then sadly, so you've got the sort of systemic reasons for widespread loneliness. Widespread loneliness creates division, and division creates more loneliness for kind of obvious reasons. But division also creates a system that's really resistant to change. So I always use the example of it sort of suffocates collaboration and innovation. It allows inequalities to widen and deepen, which create a whole range of other problems because we don't have solidarity among and all of that kind of undermines democratic processes and makes the system really resistant to change. So that can seem quite overwhelmingly negative. And I hope you can get from my tone that I'm not overwhelmingly negative, because implicit in it is the message of hope. So we've got loneliness creating division, and that is a vicious cycle, but in there is this message of hope in that we can all try to overcome the symptoms of loneliness and connect with the people around us, and gradually sort of send that vicious cycle off course. And I guess we found that this is a really helpful framework for creating a kind of higher purpose to reducing, bringing together lots of different people who are ways behind one kind of agenda of creating communities. So that's the conceptual framework behind what we do, and essentially the model is bringing together grassroots community leaders from across the UK. So you've got different community leaders and grassroots initiatives bringing people together in their respective communities, and we're trying to bring them together, support them. And through that work, we've seen that creativity is an incredible, magical tool to bring people together, both within and between communities. So I think coming back to Abba's original question for me, the role of grassroots initiatives. So I think creativity creates this purpose and a reason to come together and create shared experience for communities. It also helps individuals who have been experiencing loneliness maybe for a long time, who are then reconnecting for the first time, to sort of heal themselves and connect through a kind of there's a lot of healing that needs to happen whilst you're reconnecting with other people, and there might be a lot of, you know, ultimately quite traumatic experiences that have made connection difficult for you. And also creativity can create this real sense of like pride of place. And I've got a film I'll pop in the chat, which I think captures this really well. So one of the organisations we work with is Sabat Gallery in Middlesbrough, and they're a really beautiful example of that. So I'll pop it in the chat. It's 3 minutes or so, and some homework for you. So then, Abba, your next question to me was how creative projects can empower and connect marginalised communities. And I think the short answer to that is storytelling and solidarity. So I'm conscious of not moving today's topic away from loneliness too much, but essentially, I think we've seen how storytelling and solidarity are crucial components for creating systems change, and it effectively, you know, a system that doesn't generate loneliness in the first place. And I've just realized I forgot to mention something. So we've got a tool called 32 Steps, and how we can all be empowered as individuals to sort of intercept that vicious cycle. We've got this tool called 32 Steps to Togetherness, hence the name, which kind of guides and encourages some of that behavior change. So behavior change and changing behavior is all about storytelling, and creativity and creative arts have such an amazing, way of telling stories and bringing people together to tell stories collectively. So I was really quite keen to tell you about our filmmaking initiatives. I've decided to try and stay focused, and if anybody's interested to hear a bit more about what we do and some of the work we're doing around film, I would love to chat to you about that. But I thought I'd use this time to tell you about the Togetherness Poetry Challenge, which I think gives quite a nice example of how we can work at local levels, but in partnership and as part of a wider movement. So the Togetherness Poetry Challenge, we launched last year, and we're now on the second year. So Togetherness Poetry Challenge 2.0, and we're really hoping to make it an annual thing. And essentially, we're trying different communities and different social movements. So this is kind of answering that, the second thing, storytelling and solidarity. And basically, the challenge invites anyone and everyone to write a poem under the theme of togetherness. And we've really kind of seen, I think different creative art forms have different magical powers in different contexts. So choosing the right creative medium is really beneficial depending what you're trying to achieve. And I think for us, poetry has these sort of magical powers because writing and absorbing poetry can sort of heal us and helping us to access and process our emotions, connect with ourselves, reclaim some of our narratives. But also when shared, poetry has a magical way of creating connection and understanding, and not just within communities, but also across communities, so across different life experiences. So for us, poetry is like magical, and obviously for lots and lots of people. And the aim of the Poetry Challenge is to support people to use the power of poetry to connect with themselves, as well as build understanding across communities. And I guess our challenge is so special because it's so inclusive. So as well as creating a platform for professional poets and emerging talent, we're really, really prioritizing encouraging those who've never written a poem to participate in the challenge. So last year, we were really lucky to work with an amazing poet who was touring UK prisons and hostels, and he sort of became a kind of advocate and ambassador for the challenge and collected lots of poems from people who are currently in prison and people currently experiencing homelessness. Everyone is anyone and everyone. But to create a bit of structure, we're working through a network of poetry partners. So all of the grassroots organisations that I mentioned before that are part of our movement, we're inviting them to put on a togetherness poetry workshop with our support, so that they can support the people in their community to write a poem and submit it to the challenge. And sort of through doing that, we're also empowering them to do things like run poetry workshops and sort of supporting them in the work. And we basically come along with kind of a loose plan with how a togetherness poetry workshop can look, ready to be shaped and steered by the different organizations, because that's what that's what our organization's always been about. But gradually we're sort of trying to broaden our definition of community leader. So we've got a community of community leaders that we're supporting that bring people together in their respective communities. We're trying to bring them together, and more I want us to be thinking about community leaders in the broadest sense. So we're working with a team of SOAS students who are sort of community leaders within their university. Hairdressers are community hubs and can be kind of perceived as community leaders. Schools, employers. So yes, I'll resist going into too much detail there in the interest of time.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm just conscious of running out of time and we have to hand over to Susie. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to hand over to Susie Thornbury now from Metal Culture, and we've got around 6-7 minutes. So over to you, Susie.
Brilliant. Hello, everyone. I will rattle through. So hopefully you can see that. I'm going to assume you'll tell me if you can't. So hello, everyone. Such a brilliant set of speakers. It's really wonderful to hear from everyone. So my name's Susie Thornbury. I'm the director of Metal. Metal is all about positive social change through art and creativity, and we work at the intersection of art and change. What's really unusual about Metal is we work really deeply in communities with places. So we work in Liverpool, Peterborough and Southend, and we've existed for 20 years. And that means we work on a national scale as well. So we have this really unique position of working very deeply in places, but then being able to add up all of the amazing work that artists, communities, local authorities, and the various people that come on the journey with us do together to think about what it says about the country. I wanted to add here that we were invited to these places. They seem far away from each other. We were invited by the local authorities and by the Arts Council and other local funders. I think it's always important to talk about where the money comes from, and we're an Arts Council regularly funded organisation, so we're an NPO. As I said, Metal is a really unusual organisation. We were founded by Jude Kelly 20 years ago to capture that moment at the end of a party when you feel like you can take on the world together. And we try to really hold that in our practice. We try to acknowledge what's happening in our places that are facing quite an extreme intersection of inequalities, and to move forward with love and mutuality. And that means we work with such a broad range of partners. I think it's over 60 partners and 30 networks we're part of nationally. We're a catalyst organisation, so we help found things that then have a place in our local ecosystem. So things like Estuary Festival, which spans 106 miles of coastline in Essex and Kent, and Peterborough Pride. The work that we do, we've tried to organise it recently and thinking really about what does our work add up to nationally. So we've organised it into 3 themes. One is climate and nature, one is social justice, and one is community and connection. And the reason I mention those here is that they intersect and overlap. And I've seen some amazing questions in the chat about climate and nature, and I think these things all work together to build up that knowledge and the work that we're doing together. Metal's programme is really broad and varied. It ranges from social prescribing projects to running the network for creativity facing the climate crisis. In Liverpool, that's got over 60 members, and Artists for Future Policy, which is all about bringing artists into these conversations. It's really important to us to have fun in everything that we do, and so I will keep talking about love and mutuality and fun a million times probably throughout this conversation. One of the things I forgot to mention was in the work that we're doing, we're working with an organisation called Citizens in Power, and we're really interested in cultural democracy and putting citizens and communities and residents at the heart of what we do. So something that kept coming up consistently across our 3 places, and I don't need to talk to you about the complex reasons or the reality of what's happening in this country, was loneliness. And so we've developed a large-scale programme called The Unlonely City. It's a 10-year programme that's just been funded for the first 3 years by Paul Hamlin, who are wonderfully happy to go on this journey with us. This is an experimental programme that is based on the need in places, and that can range from social isolation to what we call a kind of political isolation. And though we're talking about loneliness here publicly, and when we start doing this work, it will be a lot about love, laughter, joy, taking the mickey out of each other sometimes. That feels really important in this work. Oh, sorry, I'm having a computer moment. So the programme comes in 3 phases. The first, as I said, is is part of our work around democracy and putting local people at the heart of decision making. We believe that artists are change makers, and so we've commissioned a series of artists, and this will take place over the lifetime of the project, to hold spaces or citizens' assemblies that gain knowledge about the way people feel close to themselves and each other and the way they feel alone in their cities. The provocation we've given ourselves is, can we make democracy beautiful? Can we make these gatherings that hear from people? We've got all of the reports, all of the stats, all of the data, all of the partnerships, but we want to hear from people about what really matters to them, and we want that to be a beautiful experience. And then based on this series of assemblies and the knowledge that we'll gather, we'll build a programme which leads us into the next phase. And in this phase, this is the phase that's holding loads of flexibility and uncertainty. So because we don't know what's going to happen in that first phase. And this is partly about us being a catalyst organisation, so helping some of those other things to exist. Based on what we find out, there will be 3 initiatives per year in each city, artists and community-led initiatives. They could be new festivals, they could be new businesses, they could be commissions. We don't know what they're going to be, but we'll support those to get off the ground. And the idea is that they disrupt loneliness in some way. So by the end of the first 3 years, we'll have 9 initiatives in each place that are designed to bring people together. And we don't know what they're going to look like. We're holding space for that in a minute. One thing it's important to say, I suppose, and we've talked about this a lot here, is the number of people that need to come together, from the NHS to care providers to housing to local authorities. And those local authority relationships are really important to us in this conversation. I'm trying to go as quickly as I can, Abba, so just shout at me. I haven't got the time in front of me because I'm presenting. The final phase of the programme, having done this deep work that really tries to change the ecosystem of the places that we work in, is we're going to have a mass participation programme that hopefully will look as joyful as this, but it's based on the research and what we learn over that long period of time from working with so many partners, so many people, learning lots about what it is to gather people, to connect, and to be together in the UK in that moment. So we're looking at doing that in around 3 years' time. The final thing I wanted to say, about that is it's important to share learning. There's been loads of brilliant sharing in the chat. So we've built into this programme a national learning group so that the people from across the 3 cities can really learn from each other. And that ranges from people who run charities, community leaders, artists, to people who work in local authorities. We want them sharing knowledge and coming together. And we're building in, we'll have a structural change artist who will be part of the whole programme for the first 3 years, looking at what are the structural changes that we can make, including in our organisation, to facilitate more of this kind of work. We've had the first experiment in this programme, and it was with a brilliant artist called Luca Rutherford, and that was a programme called As We Gather. I'm trying to read you the quote, but I won't read it because of time. But it was beautiful conversations between strangers who live in the same city to think about, where do unplanned encounters happen, which areas might feel isolating. And we've just had 3 gatherings with marshmallows and fires and all kinds of beautiful things across the 3 cities. So this is absolutely an experiment in all of those things, in citizen-led decision making, in different forms of consultation and creation, and bringing people together, in bringing different people together from across the sectors, and in what it all adds up to when you work with one framework across 3 places in a really deep way. We're really committed to learning and sharing, so give us a shout, ask me any questions if you have them. And Amber, I'm so sorry if I went over. I can't see the time.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Susie. And thank you everyone for all your questions as well. I hope we've managed to answer most of them in the chat. If not, please feel free to email me. That's community.manager@nablylab.com. After the webinar, I will put together a summary doc that has all our contact details, websites, so you can get in touch with us with any other questions you have. And there'll be a short survey as well at the end of the webinar that will pop up on your screen. And it's just some feedback for the hub, just so we know how we're doing. and to make sure that you're getting the most out of our webinars. It would be great as well if you could join the hub, join our arts and creativity group, and also complete the survey for Anna and the London Arts and Health Forum. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. So sorry to run over, and I hope to see you all on the hub soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, and importantly, a big thank you to all our panel as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eva.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.